Hare Krishna, everyone. A very happy Sunday to you all. Today, you are joining the Children at Home show on the GBC Strategic Planning Team Facebook page, YouTube page, and social media channels. Please do hit that share button as soon as you join so many more can take advantage of the great honor we have of our speaker today. So today, Her Grace Mother Malati will be with us, and she will be sharing us so many tidbits of her journey in parenting and just in seeing Srila Prabhupada as a father, as well as some really important instruction that we can follow with raising our own children. My name is Gopi Gita Schomaker. I am lucky to be the Vice Principal of TKG Academy and the Regional Secretary for the Ministry of Education. Thank you so much for being here with us, Mother Malati. How are you?
Hare Krishna. Very happy to be here with you.
Wonderful. So as everybody may know or may not know, Mother Malati is one of 3 GBC members that are Vaishnavis, and she has been serving Srila Prabhupada since 1967, one of our most senior devotees in the movement, and really powerful. She has been leading communities in Ohio, Detroit. You know, of course, being a GBC member, Mother Malati must have quite a lot of responsibilities, and we're so grateful for you to continue inspiring us with your service. Can you tell us a little bit about your life? How did you meet Srila Prabhupada? What attracted you to Srila Prabhupada? Let us know a little bit about you.
Hare Krishna. Meeting Srila Prabhupada occurred for me on the top of a mountain in Oregon, in a wilderness area, vast wilderness area. And it was in the form of the first volume of the Srimad Bhagavatam that came over from India. It was shown to me by a friend who had gone to New York, and all these pop-up stuff coming. So a friend had gone to New York, a friend and his girlfriend, Mike and Jan, they went to New York. They met a Swami. And at that time, I was living in Portland, Oregon with my boyfriend. And they sent a letter to us telling us that they were going to get married. And we were thinking, oh my God, what's happened to them? Because, being kind of loosely associated with the hippie sampradaya, marriage was not part of our lifestyle. So that was kind of interesting. And then later on, we ended up on this mountaintop. Sam got a job as a lookout for fires. And it was a huge, vast area. And one day we had a day off. It was like a low risk fire day. So we went on to another mountain, spent the night. And when we came back the next day, we see a vehicle by our little wooden cabin. And kind of surprised because basically nobody came up there. And when we opened the door, there were our friends, Jan, Mike, and Jan's sister Joan. And we were in for some more surprises. Now, Jan had already made herself at home. She was cooking something. I had no idea what it was because I had no idea what it was. But we thought, okay, we have guests. We should offer them something nice, the best thing we have. And we didn't have a lot up there on top of the mountain. So we offered them, would you like some LSD? And they said no. So, okay. Well, LSD, what's next? Well, we found out that actually they had new names. Jan was Janaki, Mike was Mukunda, and Joan was still Joan. And then the dinner came, and we found out they were vegetarians, which, I mean, telling you in those days, that was kind of radical. Like, if you were a vegetarian in the early 60s, mid 60s, you might be a communist or something, just
Wow.
it wasn't on the radar yet. And during that dinner, which was the first Krishna Prasadam that I had, Mike, now Mukunda, said that after dinner he wanted to show us the book from the Swami.
Mm.
And that book was the first volume of the Srimad Bhagavatam that Srila Prabhupada had brought over from India on the trunk, on the steamer ship or the, cargo ship.
Mm.
And for me, that was my first connection and introduction to Srila Prabhupada. And
Nice.
I mean, there was just so many things about that moment. Just looking, he hands me the book, and there's this blue skinned guy with 4 arms with a plant growing out of his navel, and on top of the plant was a fellow with 4 heads. And I'm just looking at this, like, who's that? And Mukunda very soberly said, "This is God." And I was immediately, I felt some kind of full acceptance, because up until that point, there was a conflict about God. In general, people were very, among the young people, is there God? Is there not God? Maybe we're God, you're God, I'm God. And when they started this, we're all God, I'm like, oh my God, if I'm God, there's no hope for this world. And then there was the classic, there is no
Yeah.
God. And
Wow.
then there was the famous cover of Time magazine that promoted God is dead. So it was a pretty confusing
Wow.
time. But here was this beautiful book with this incredible person. And not only was that guy with the 4 arms and the blue skin, he was lying on a bed, a snake.
Mm. Wow. Yes.
So here's God. But you know what? That was so convincing, because if there was a God, it just had to be a little bit different than us. And
Yes.
this person was definitely a little bit different. And then when you got into the book, I started looking through. You see the Sanskrit, which I didn't know it was Sanskrit, but here's this ancient language, word by word, a beautiful translation, some discussion per part. And I kept seeing one particular phrase, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The
Oh,
Supreme
wow.
Personality of Godhead. Such exquisite poetry, actually, but so convincing. If there was God and here was God, he had to be supreme.
Oh,
So
I love that.
from this moment, I thought, I want to meet this person, the person who authored these books, and that was Srila Prabhupada. We had previously met people, but everybody was just not a very convincing representative of anything. As Prabhupada sometimes will use the word flowery words of the Vedas, they had the flowery words, but they weren't even from the Vedas. So here was something
Yes.
authentic, and I was attracted to that.
So you're saying it's incredible. Your first connection with Srila Prabhupada, you felt him, you felt his presence as soon as you picked up that book, and you saw the contents and the picture, and it's such a beautiful, because I'm asking you when you met Srila Prabhupada, and that was your first direct connection with him was through his books, which is, very powerful, the Vani versus the Vapu. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when we were in Gurukul, we learned this song. Every time Krishna kills a demon, we would all erupt into this song. I'm sure you've heard it. Jaya, Jaya, glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then we sing you sing that again and again, and you imagine demigods showering flowers, and it's like this beautiful scene. When I think of those 3 words, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I remember the scene of Krishna like just doing some heroic thing. And when you think of those 3 words, you think of Srila Prabhupada. Another connection, Mother Malati, that's coming to mind that we all remember reading in the Prabhupada Lilamrita is that Saraswati, your daughter, Srila Prabhupada loved when she would say, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's quoted that a few times. And I always remember, I think that's probably one of my first connections with you, is that Srila Prabhupada reading that in one of the little Red Nectar books or somewhere, that Srila Prabhupada
Not
was
that
so proud of her.
I wasn't in those, but yeah.
Okay, that he was so proud of her, and I'm realizing that she was so proudly saying that because that term really resonated with you, like those 3 words really resonated with you. So how did you saw the book, you met him through the books? What was
And
the
then
experience like to meet him?
then the next, well, then there was a decision to go down to San Francisco with Mukunda and Janaki and open a temple. They said they were going to open a temple and then they were going to go to India. I remember
Wow.
asking Mukunda, so what's a temple? And he said very seriously, a storefront painted white. Anyway, we ended up, we ended up, oh, Krishna, I have a little peacock friend at the door.
Oh, Chai. Is that Anuradha's peacock?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so sweet. You're right there in New Vrindavan.
I will, Kirtan. So we ended up going to San Francisco. We ended up finding a storefront. We ended up painting it white. And Prabhupada came January 17th, 1967. His first time on an airplane coming from New York. He came on a boat, a big. So
Yes.
now here, that was his, just for historical reference, that was his first time on an airplane.
First time on airplane, yeah.
And actually, another historical reference, a couple days ago on the 11th of September, that was marking the occasion of the first initiation in ISKCON. Um, it was, I think,
Oh, really? That's a nice memory for 9/11. That's a nice date.
um, let me just check something. It might have been before that, but he was completely, it was amazing that, hmm, yes, no, it was September 11th. It was the year it was September 11th, 1969, that he
Hmm.
came to London for the first time. That
Okay. All
that's
right.
what stuck in the mind. But the first initiation happened in '66, and it was on the occasion of Janmashtami. Second
Oh.
initiation was in the occasion of Radhastami.
Oh, wow.
That was all in New
So
York.
all these dates that pass by, they're like ingrained in you as like, when people are couples and they celebrate their first trip here, their first airplane ride together, their first 2-month anniversary, their first 8-month anniversary. Like it's so beautiful that you remember all these dates, like almost like you fell in love with Srila Prabhupada. And even now you still remember all these dates. Oh, that's when Srila Prabhupada did this with us. And that's when it's such a beautiful thing. I hope one day by your mercy we can also remember Srila Prabhupada like that.
Well, there's, I mean, so many reminders now that are available to do that. But
Yes.
therefore, he landed on the 17th, and a couple of days later was this initiation with four persons, myself. So myself, Melanie, and Sam became Malati and
Mm.
Shamsunder. And then Harvey Cohen became Haridas, and Hope became Harsharani. So that was the first four that were initiated in San Francisco.
Wonderful.
And
Okay.
then
So then, yes.
after that initiation was the second marriage in ISKCON,
Oh,
myself and Shamsunder. First,
Sundar. And you,
Mukunda and Janaki, and second, myself and Shamsunder.
would
It
you
was
like to tell us a little bit about that? We
well,
have we have Rasas Thali Devi with us, Hari Krishna, Raju Maharwal, Hari Krishna Mahendra Baichu from Guyana. We've got quite a few devotees who have joined us today right now as they're listening. If you have any questions for Mother Malati, she had so many experiences and pastimes to share about Srila Prabhupada and can give us a lot of advice also on our own Krishna consciousness with our children. So please do ask your questions. We'll hit your questions a little later if you'd in the show. So go ahead and sorry to interrupt you, Mother Malati. So
that's
you were
fine.
talking about your marriage. So what was that like, getting married
Well,
with Srila
the
Prabhupada?
backtrack a bit is that we understood from Mukunda and Janaki that Prabhupada would expect you to get married if you were living together,
Mm.
if you wanted to continue living together. And after Mukunda was married, so the next day, he and Janaki went to see Prabhupada, Swamiji, as he was called in those days. And so he questioned them because so you yesterday you've taken some very serious vows. So what do you plan to do about it? And first Mukunda was a little perplexed.
Mm.
And then he pointed out, well, you're living together, And so then Mukunda asked him, so is there love in Krishna consciousness? And Prabhupada said, yes.
Mm.
That wasn't the issue. The issue, but you're living you. So then he kind of got it, and he suggested, well, why don't you get married? And
Mm.
they agreed. And then, of course, Prabhupada arranged their marriage. Mukunda bought a red silk sari with golden border, a cheap Benares sari, and marriage occurred. And so in our case, of course, second marriage. So I borrowed that same sari. In fact, that was the only sari in ISKCON for a while, and everybody who got married, I think I just got married in that sari.
Wow, that's incredible.
Borrows anyway. Um,
Yes.
so there was an understanding that this was a very serious thing. We weren't playing games anymore.
Mm.
And if you got one together, you would stay together.
Mm.
That there shall be no separation. Use that word. There shall not be any separation.
Mm.
And we were, agreeable to that. So then the marriage occurred. And I remember all of our hippie friends, which included a contingent from the Grateful Dead, came over. We
Mm.
happened to live across the street from him at the time.
Mm.
So um, it was a serious occasion, but it was a joyful occasion, you know. And we took it as seriously as we could with the limited understanding we had at that time.
Jai. Yeah. So it's interesting because it was like all of you were hippies. And so with the hippie culture, there was so much less conservative rules and regulations. It was, love was free. And I don't know if it was, I'm sure there was some kind of a commitment between the different, sexes when they were together, but it wasn't, marriage was like an outdated, just from knowing, hearing what was going on in the 60s, marriage was like an outdated institution that no one really believed in at that time. And so to have Srila Prabhupada like really stress it.
It radically changed that perception for us.
Wow, and you accepted it. You were obedient to be able to accept it from an elderly gentleman. How was that possible? How were you able to accept that?
At that point, our openness to hearing from Swamiji was not barricaded resistance. I mean, now
Nice.
question everything you say comes with a question, but we were open to hearing from him, and we wanted to, even though our hearing abilities were somewhat compromised because we were still extremely heavily clouded over by our just recently, you know, activities of life.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. So then you were married and you had your first daughter. And what was that like, having children around Srila Prabhupada?
Well,
What was that
there's
experience?
on 17th of June in 68, first child was born. Actually, there would have been another child earlier.
Hmm.
Himavati was pregnant, but her child was stillborn.
Oh,
So
Krishna.
that was quite devastating for her. And
Yes.
from that, I learned a lesson. She had prepared everything for the arrival of this child,
Hmm.
everything. And when the child was stillborn, there was all these painful reminders, the bassinet, the clothes, the this, the that. So I thought, I'm not going to make that mistake.
Oh.
So when my daughter was born, we had nothing.
Oh, wow. You were worried.
No, I wasn't worried. I'm a very practical person, but I didn't
Ah,
want to that mistake, have everything ready, and then what? And
yeah.
Shamsundar was working on the Roth card at the time. So he had we had this funky van, and he had dropped it off and left the keys for me. So when I was going out of the hospital with this new baby, um, there was kind of a surprise that I would be driving myself. And not only that, not seatbelts weren't required in those days, nor were like restraints for the kid. There was only one seat, the driver's seat. So I had gotten this wicker basket, and I put the baby in the wicker basket. Was on to me. Our first stop was a department store. So I go in with the baby, and I said, I went to the baby department. I remember it was downstairs, and these ladies come up. They want to help me. And what do you want? And I said, well, I don't know. you know, so we're like, what? I have this newborn. I said, well, I just had the baby, and I don't know what I need, which I really didn't. And they kind of looked at each other, and then I explained why I didn't have anything. And okay, and then well, you'll need this. And then, but I already knew we were going to be going to England, so I said, well, not too many. I don't need too much. I said, we're leaving the country, and quite quickly, and I have to be able to carry everything. Again, they're kind of looking at each other, but they helped me come back with a baby and a few little items.
It's so ecstatic. Wow, what days, huh? This was the late 60s. And how society has changed since then,
And my mom said, well, if you
we're
want,
like prepared nipples in the store on the shelf.
my mom said, well, I'll take care of the baby when you go to England if you like. And I said, well, Mom, we don't know when we're coming back. Things were
Oh,
not.
wow. It was just total surrender, huh? Just like full surrender, whatever Srila Prabhupada wanted, where you were ready to go. It was, even with the baby, even with the newborn baby. Did your life change drastically as a Hare Krishna? So what was your routine like with baby Saraswati? And did your life really change? What do you remember in those early days of having a newborn?
Um, it's not there was a big change in life. How we say, well, you just add Krishna to your life. Well, we just added a newborn to our life. Whatever we did, she was there. She came along. She was part of whatever we did. And there wasn't any specific differences per se. Just now we had a baby.
Jai, so when you went to London, then the ISKCON history is that 3 couples, you and the other 2 couples went to London. You were the only one who also had a child in tow.
Yeah.
Wow, so she was preaching right alongside you. She was going from temple to temple, because I remember.
She wasn't immediately
She was
preached.
baby.
She was only 6 weeks old when we left. But on
Okay.
17th June, Prabhupada wrote in a letter to Sachi Sudha, he says, just now I received a telephone message from San Francisco that a baby is born, a girl baby is born of Malati and Shamsundar, and they asked me for registration of the baby's name. And she is named by me as Saraswati Devi. Please pray for the newly born baby in Krishna consciousness.
Oh, that's so sweet. How sweet is that? But Malati, your story is not I'm sure you're aware, but it's not a normal story to have a 6-week-old and travel across the world to a brand new place and start a temple with a child.
I mean,
the others, okay, they were pioneers in our movement. They were doing it. You also were juggling brand new motherhood. And so that is a testament to your sacrifice, your austerity, your strength to be able to do that.
It was Prabhupada's mercy. It wasn't anything else. Nothing but his mercy. Just like when he came over in the Jaladuta and there was that, heavy storms, the illness, the heart attacks. And then he managed to, they got across the Atlantic, and the captain said that, oh, I have never had such a crossing, because suddenly all the storms were behind. And Prabhupada just said, it's only by Krishna's mercy. So in the same way for us, it was only by Prabhupada's mercy. Nothing else can be said.
Wow, that's so beautiful. It shows that even what I'm hearing from you, and for everybody who's watching, thank you so much for joining. We have quite a few here with us now, almost 150 and rising. Please do answer your questions. share your parenting questions and your heart with Mother Malati, who's a very dear daughter of Srila Prabhupada, and she can really help with teaching us how to be better parents in Krishna consciousness. So,
I,
Mother
I
Malati,
I would not make that claim about me.
okay. How about just you can help us get the mercy of Srila Prabhupada in whatever we're doing. And so, what I'm hearing, so to everyone who's watching, we have Mother Malati here on the Children at Home show, part of the GBC strategic planning team. And we're doing this week because this week was the week that Srila Prabhupada stepped foot in America. And one of the very first couples that took shelter of his lotus feet was Her Grace Mother Malati. So what you're saying is that everything became easy and simple and no issue because of Srila Prabhupada's mercy. And so what I'm taking from that even right now is that
It was particularly easy.
not
Easy,
particularly easy, okay?
but we weren't resistant because
Okay.
we were by Prabhupada's mercy, and he had given us a direction, and we were intent on following that direction. But it
Okay,
worked.
I like how you said that. It wasn't particularly, not necessarily is it going to be easy. So it's okay to face the difficulty and face the challenge, but that you lose your resistance to it.
Well,
Nice.
it, it's not that you lose your resistance, but you're
Hmm.
there, you're committed. And actually, this commitment is something that is, in some cases, not in your case, you're very committed. But commitment is not a necessarily obvious part of the current edition of ISKCON. You know, we were
Hmm.
committed, and therefore we stuck through these difficulties and so-called obstacles and sometimes setbacks were not enough to deter us. We were there for a purpose, and we were committed to fulfilling that purpose.
This
Just
is
as
so powerful and so important.
just as Srila Prabhupada was committed to fulfilling the instructions of his spiritual master. Yeah. And we had that example
That no
before us.
matter the challenge, hmm.
Powered on.
Yes, so no matter the challenge, no matter the resistance, the commitment, and I'm working on my commitment still. I'm pretty up and down. So thank you. Keep blessing me. Okay,
Well, it
so you're
doesn't go
here
up
now
or
in
down.
London.
Stay. As long as you stick it, you may be up or down. That's okay. But you stick in it. You're not walking out the door.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. And
Thank you.
so we're now with you in London, and you have met the Beatles and with Saraswati. And how did you, just back on to how did Srila Prabhupada interact with you? Well, you can tell us about that time, or if you'd like to share what were your interactions like with him and Saraswati? Maybe,
Oh,
throwing out a few things here.
there were so many lovely interactions with him and Saraswati. She had carte blanche to enter his quarters whenever she wanted. Not
Mm,
anybody else could make that claim that they could just freely walk in and out, but she could do that. But
mm.
because by the time he arrived, by this point she was a toddler. She was
Yeah,
a little baby. She was like walking, and there were so many instances. But I want to just back up a bit. Like
sure.
we left to UK via Montreal.
Mm,
First stopped in Montreal, then New York, and flew over, more or less. So anyway, during that time, we spent time with Srila Prabhupada. It was both Janmashtami and his Jasa Puj.
mm,
But there was a letter that was written to Krishna Devi from Montreal, August of '68. And in that letter, he wrote, regarding the child problem, she just had a child. I may inform you that all of our children born in Krishna conscious parents, they are welcome, and I want hundreds of children like that because in the future we may expect to change the face of the world because child is the father of man. Now, she had written with her problem, and he writes, anyway, I have seen Malati is nursing her child so nicely that she attended my meeting every day, means the classes, and the child, she never cried. Similarly, Leelavati's child also never cries or disturbed the meeting. Leelavati was always present with her. So it depends on the mother how to keep the child comfortable so that it will not cry.
Jai.
So, you know, um, that was observed by him. And I'm just mentioning it because I see nowadays that, I was there right in front of Prabhupada. I put the baby right under my sari, put her on the breast, and kept her chilled, I
Yes.
kept quiet, right? And he observed what was going on, and he was obviously approving,
Mm.
you know. So, but under the sari, under something. Um, During that time in Montreal, there was a very nice exchange between Srila Prabhupada and baby Saraswati, as she was known. People still come up to me and go, "How's baby Saraswati?" And I'm God, she's old here. um,
That's
so
great.
myself and Janaki were really anxious to meet Swamiji when we arrived in Montreal. And later that evening, he would be in the temple, but we were a little anxious. We jumped the gun. And I said, "Come on, let's go find him." And he go, how are we going to find him? Because he wasn't living, the temple was an old bowling alley. There weren't even separate rooms. There was clotheslines crisscrossed with sheets clipped onto the lines. And these little sheets made little rooms. The walls were the sheets. So
Mm.
you minimal privacy. Um, so they had an apartment for Srila Prabhupada. And I said, "How will we find him? No problem. We're going to walk around until we see some orange cloth hanging out." And
Mm.
sure enough, we saw there was some orange cloth hanging out. Went up and knocked on the door. And Govinda Dasi, who was serving along with her husband Gaurasundar, opened the door. And she goes, "Oh, Swamiji, the San Francisco devotees are here." And he was in the next room.
Ah.
He looked up and he saw me and he says, "Come in." And Janaki says, "Come in, come in." And I'm holding the baby and he goes, "Oh, this very child. I dreamt about this very child this morning." And then he repeated, "This
Oh.
morning I dreamt about this very child." Now, you would have thought I would have asked, "Oh, what was the dream?" But I didn't. I was just, that
Oh.
was totally enough. And he didn't
Yeah.
go, you know. So then the next significant interaction came on his Vyasapuj Day, which was the day after Janmashtami. And they brought him this big plate. And he picks up a gulab jamun and he takes a bite. And then he holds the rest of it and he calls me up. And
Mm.
he goes, "For the baby."
Mm.
Now, my stupid little mind goes, because I had heard, okay, for 6 months, you only take mother's milk, right? So at first my mind was going, but, she's only, and then right, this is from, and he's bitten from it. So right away I put it by her mouth and she just started sucking out all the juice, you know, because he took
Oh.
a bite. So that
Yes.
was a very sweet exchange. And then on the day we were leaving, we went to his apartment, and I had asked Govinda Dasi if she could ask Srila Prabhupada if we could touch his lotus feet before we departed.
Mm.
Because I had seen Indians trying to touch his feet, and he didn't seem too comfortable with it. In fact, he
Mm.
seemed to try to avoid it. But I also knew that we needed all the mercy we could get.
Mm.
And so she asked him, and he agreed. So when the time came, then he was at his little low desk. He stretched out his lotus feet, and one by one we came up and we put our head on his lotus feet. And he took his lotus hand and he rubbed us right here, each one of us.
Oh, that's so sweet. Oh, I love it.
And what
That's
happened?
very.
It was, for me anyway, and I think for all of us, there was some kind of electrical current that was transmitted, and I instinctively knew no matter what was going to happen, we would be successful eventually.
Jai.
So then after that, and then Jamuna was raised a Catholic, right? She grabbed his feet and kissed them. kind of kissing the hand, so she kissed his lotus feet. So then she was sitting there at the desk, and he smiled. Okay, he says, hand me the baby. So I handed the baby, and he was holding her in front, like, but with her head facing, and they were both facing out, and he had a garland on, and he flipped it over both of them, and he smiled this kind of like impish smile, and he goes, so now they will say, what kind of sannyas is he? So that was her first, interactions as a little baby, not even 2 months old, with the Prabhupada. And then
Nice. It's so beautiful to hear.
showing the little makeup, the little photo for advertising this session. So there was a picture of, it's quite a well-known picture. He's holding her hand, that little baby, that little girl whose hand he's holding. That was Saraswati, and that was at John Lennon's estate. And the background of that picture is that during the time at Lennon's estate, I was doing cooking and shopping for the devotees, and I didn't get the opportunity to go out on the morning walks. And the little places that we were staying were former stables. Now they were, converted into living quarters, but they had these doors, like the top part would open, like we call them double Dutch doors.
Right.
So, but in the stables, they were like, the top part would open and you could look in. So I would have the top part of the door open, and in the morning, Prabhupada would walk by, and but I couldn't go in the walk. But the baby, now a little toddler, she was jumping up and down, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. She wanted to go, and somehow she got that door open, and she ran out and grabbed his hand. So that's the picture that you see, that she's holding that hand, his hand. And
Mm.
Prabhupada looked at her, and he goes, Saraswati, you're not properly dressed. Because you'll see Prabhupada has a heavy coat on, has his hat on. And so she looks at me. She does not let go. She looks at me like without speaking. Bring my coat, bring my jacket, my wellies. Well, Prabhupada only rubber boots are called wellies.
Ah.
Or slippers. So I brought out, and she didn't even want to let go to put on the coat. So she
Ah.
put one arm in, and then she grabbed with that hand, grabbed and let go to get the other arm in.
Oh,
And
she just wanted to hang on tight to Srila Prabhupada's hand.
did not want to let go. So then she went with him on the walk. And on
Oh.
another occasion, when we were in India, because then we were sent from England to India. Um, so on another occasion in Bombay, it was the second Pandal program, and we were in Prabhupada was staying in a very nice flat in Bombay, and everybody else was out in Juhu. So two things happened at that place that were significant. Um, Shamsundar at that point was his secretary, and I was called upon to do the cooking and house cleaning. And the place was a flat from well-to-do persons. The person had actually died, and the flat was there for vacant. So the brother of that person had allowed us to stay there, and there was like these servants' quarters. So I had a room, my own bathroom, and all that, and myself and Saraswati were staying there. Other
Mm.
devotees were out in Juhu, but there was going to be a big procession, and the um, the person who's now himself departed, Srinathji, Mr.
Mm.
Desai at the time, had loaned a very nice convertible car, American convertible car, for
Mm.
Prabhupada to ride in for the procession.
Mm.
So because I was cooking and cleaning, I wasn't going on that procession. So I stood out on a little balcony over the parking lot. I was looking down. Saraswati was with me. And she's crying, Swami, I mean, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. But, it was just like we're a couple stories up. I can't remember if it was two or three. There's down on the road, and, you could hear traffic. And she's, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Next thing you know, there was knocking at the door, and I went, and the servant, one of the servants said, Prabhupada wants Saraswati.
Mm.
So my mind goes, "Oh my God, but what if she has to go to the bathroom or something?" Like, imagine. Okay, and away she, and
She's like 2 or 3 years old here.
at that point she would probably be closer to 3, whether she was fully 3 or not. But she was a not a baby anymore, a toddler, and
Yes.
Prabhupada had her sit right next to him in the back of that car for the whole procession. She was
Wow.
with him, and later on, I heard several hours later, knocking on the door. I opened the door. There was Prabhupada and Saraswati and Rishi Kumar. And I'm looking at Saraswati. So how was it? And she kind of looked at me. How can you even ask that question? She didn't say this, but the look was Prabhupada. How can you ask how it was?
Oh.
So that was a very sweet exchange. But during that same time that we were staying there, a letter came from Dallas.
Mm.
And this letter was alerting that there had been some abuse of the children in Dallas.
Mm.
And Prabhupada was reading that letter, and his reaction was quite heavy. And he said they should be hanged. And he wasn't talking about the children, of course. He was talking about the teachers who were part of the abuse at the time. Now, I want to say something about this because that was a heavy statement. And I found out later, much later, like that actually my daughter had also been abused, but this time it was not sexual abuse. It was being reported. It was heavy punishment, and they were talking about. They gave examples. So one of the examples that one child had to stand in a bucket of her own urine in the window because of wetting the bed. It turned out that child was my daughter, but I didn't know that at the time. Now, initially, when I did find out, I was quite angry. This was years later, way after it. But then I had an experience, and I want to tell this because it gives a little context for how things are going on. And it wasn't so black and white. That teacher was 19 years old. What experience did she have? And there was at least 25 children in that class without any help, without any backup. I found this out later too.
Mm.
So, like, a kid was taken away from its parents, which our kids were. I was in India, and my 4.5-year-old daughter was sent to Dallas,
Mm.
without her parents. So, wetting the bed was kind
What's
of
up?
like I wet the bed until I was 12 years old, and I was living with my family. And my
Mm.
mom was really cool about it. Every night she just put clean sheets. She had a little rubber sheet under the thing. So there was no shame involved. It was, and I
Right. She knew how to act. She was a mom. She knew how to deal with that. Okay, so this is so like it's so
so when I
enchanting and
found about this, and I realized here was this young person who was the teacher, no backup, no, I had a different, I felt sorry for those teachers too.
mm,
Wasn't this mean, horrible person. She was an overwhelmed young person.
who didn't have any understanding of how to act or how to teach her, and she should not
That
have
was
been teaching.
the only reason she got that job was because she was given a large donation.
Wow. Okay, so this is a big topic, a very big topic we've journeyed into, and I wanted to just back
I just want to like put
your
that out there that it wasn't like this. There were some evil persons, but that wasn't a different level.
a lot of the evil is just ignorance, is what you're saying, is that a lot
Oh
of it
no,
was
no.
just
Like I was told later, like not from I saw this picture of this person later, and I asked. I didn't know that was her. I said, "Who's this? Who's this young girl with braids milking a cow?" And that was
mm,
the teacher. And when I saw that, I said, "Oh my God, she was a baby herself."
oh wow.
There
So it
was
was like eye-opening.
there was no laundry facilities, So you know that laundromat. I don't know if it's still there, but you had to take a little bit of a walk to get to the laundromat. And here you've got 25 kids, a number of whom were wetting their beds. So then they had to pile all the wet sleeping bags into the grocery cart, and with all the kids walk to the laundromat. I mean, how was that?
Yeah. So you're speaking about the beginning days with Srila Prabhupada and the bliss of experiencing motherhood, and all the little interactions you had with Srila Prabhupada, the real deep love that he shared. And then, of course, now
And
we're
the
hearing
care
from you.
he always exhibited toward the children.
Yes. And so, and then we, of course, you're talking about as a mom, hearing, the pain and this kind of certain things that happened to your daughter as well in the school.
But I
And
didn't find that, I didn't know that until years later.
until years later. Yes. And so we only have 15 minutes left, and there's a few questions that have come up, and I feel like we could go for a whole nother hour on this topic. This is a very
Well,
deep topic
but
for all of
I
us.
brought that up to just put a little perspective in what was happening there.
Yes,
It doesn't justify things,
yes,
but it's not like people came in with these evil intentions.
yes.
Most of them. Some of them, yes, but most of
And
them
so
not.
that's why training, and that's why in the Ministry of Education, we're really working right now, and it's going to take a few years on developing training programs that anybody who's working with children, whether they be a volunteer or a teacher, and even parents, that you really take time to educate yourself, just like you educate yourself for everything you do when you're driving a car, or the simplest things, what to speak of raising a human being, to educate yourself, and that our leaders place only trained individuals with their children, with the children of society. But that's such a big topic. I feel very fiery about this. So I'm going to, if it's okay with you, Mother Malati, I don't want to get really intense here. So if it's okay, we can move on to these questions that are coming in. We only have 10 minutes left, and I wish we had so much longer because you have so many more pastimes to share about Srila Prabhupada, and you really bring us right into his mood of love. So, Ressa, Stali, Mataji, your question has been run out. If you could just summarize it into one short sentence and ask it again. But this is a really good one that kind of is in touch with what we're talking about. May I ask your opinion from Anda Malakar? Why do children leave Krishna consciousness when they grow old? And is there something we can do about it? Like, what mistakes should we not do and what positive things should we do? And I'd love to hear your answer. And then I'll also share a little bit of my experience on this.
Well, I think your experience would be the more valuable one because you've lived it. My daughter was, as I said, went to Gurukula at the age of 4.5, and then at that point we never lived together again.
Mm.
So it was a different type of parenting situation. No.
Yes. So I think I'd love to hear just a little bit more about this topic in general, because you did, when you're talking about Srila Prabhupada's love, we feel it, Mother Malati. You live it. You see Srila Prabhupada, he's in your heart, he's with you. And I don't have that Shakti the way you do. But Anda Malakar, since she's instructed me to share first, I'll go ahead. The most important thing you can do, most of our peers have left Krishna consciousness when they get older, is make sure that every single one of their impressions that have to do with spiritual life today, from the age of 0, pre-zero in the womb, all the way to the age of 18, 20, 25, when they're leaving your home and even beyond, that they're positive, happy, encouraging experiences with Krishna consciousness. Japa should not become a chore. It should not be forced. Kirtan should not be forced. Bhagavatam class should not be forced.
Nothing should be forced. Prabhupada's own words, nothing should be forced. If you want to,
Yes,
turn them away, force them. He goes,
yes,
if there's love, in a letter to Rupa Vilas regarding, I think, the Dallas Gurukul, because he was in charge for a little while, if there's love, I will do anything gladly.
yes. If there's love, then you're giving Srila Prabhupada's letters. Nothing should be forced. Krishna consciousness is inherent in the hearts of our children. Krishna consciousness doesn't have to show itself in how many verses my child recites or how long my child is able to sit with his legs crossed and his eyes closed and chant japa at age 4. Nothing should be forced. Krishna consciousness is spontaneously in their hearts, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter. These are transcendental yogis from a previous life who have entered your home. What they're doing, read them stories, sing them songs, dance and chant. Have a good time. Make it as exciting as eating ice cream. Make Krishna consciousness an exciting experience, an enjoyable experience. And if a child is having difficulty or a teenager is having difficulty in it, let up on the pressure. Don't pressure them. Give them space. Give them time to work through whatever it is they need to work through. And yes, most of our children, just like kids leave their parents for a certain amount of time to develop their independence, is part of their psychology. Our children as teenagers in America, maybe later if they're in other countries, will need to step away or may need to just take a few days away from you and away from the world that they were in to identify what is it that they believe, what is it that they want to worship, how do they want to worship Srila Prabhupada, how do they want to worship Krishna, how do they want to make it their own. So if they have not yet made it their own because your house is extremely structured and their life is very structured with you, it's natural that when they get older, they're going to take that space to make it their own. Do not deride them at that time. At any time, there should be no negative interaction to do with japa or kirtan or anything related to Krishna. Actually, for I give parenting education courses, and there should be no negative with anything, but it's not, practical in this life of birth and death to not have negative with anything. But definitely, if you do anything, and this comes to our next question right here, what is the limit of discipline we should maintain for children between 5 to 10 years old, especially in Krishna consciousness with sadhana and behavior? So that's another really good question, which we won't have time to hit. But Mother Malati, I'd love to now stop and hear you.
What is
What is the limit of discipline we should maintain for children between 5 to 10 years old, especially in Krishna consciousness with sadhana and behavior?
I think the same thing applies.
Yes.
But still, at that point, there are expected behaviors, and not. This doesn't necessarily even mean it per se Krishna conscious. I'm talking about building character, having proper interactions with the parents, grandparents, teachers, peers, etc. Good character, developing good character. And that is something that is lacking in society in general, but it's something that we can give our children. But one thing I want to say is that that's all we can do. We can give it to them. What they do with it is up to them. But what I have seen and experienced in wonderful ways is, you were saying, let them have some space. Yeah, let them have some space. Let them go out and burn out if they want. But what I have found, if they have this good foundation, a good Krishna conscious foundation, they'll come back.
Yes.
You know, um, there was at one point in New Vrindavan a trio of ladies that we called the dacoits. They were so wild. Oh my God. And the mother of one was pulling her hair out. Oh my God. And I remember one day going into the temple, and it was Prabhupada's was appearance or disappearance, whatever. Nobody was in the temple yet except these girls. And there they were on the Vyasa sign wearing shorts. Must have been his parents' day. Shorts and little tiny tops. And they were decorating the Vyasa sign. So on one hand, it's like, whoa, On the other hand, wow, look what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I happened to be in the bathroom, and they came in. And so I said to them, "That was so nice that you were doing that. Thank you." And they looked at me with total surprise. And they just melted. Nobody else had said anything to them.
Oh, Mother Malati, this is so beautiful. When I saw that question, I was thinking the discipline question for ages 5 to 10, this is what I was going to respond with. And I just told myself, stay quiet and hear you. And this is exactly what you have said. Notice, yes, we need to have high expectations of character and morality and discipline means that we have expectations for our children. How do we make those expectations? By noticing what is already there. Like you're saying, you noticed that they were serving Srila Prabhupada, not by noticing what is not there, by putting emphasis, which we do as parents. Mother Malati, even though I've been doing, I have an 18-year-old now, my eldest is 18, I still have to remind myself of this every day. I remember all the negative. Right now he's cooking, the older one is cooking lunch for Ekadashi because I have this live video, and he's just went and made the offering to the deities, and he's ringing the bell, and I'm thinking, Mother Malati can't be disturbed with the sound. Why does he have to ring the bell? But instead, I should be thinking, I'm so glad he's making the offering.
That bell ringing is proof of your good parenting.
I have, the tendency as a mother, Rasasthali Mataji and Gora.
I was going to say, so these three dacoits, like they were 14 or so, 15, 14, they were teenagers, right?
Yes.
So they were wild as anything. Now they're all initiated Brahmins.
Jai, look at that.
And parents themselves.
Look at that. That's wonderful to hear. So Gora Mani Mataji is here with us all the way from Vrindavan. It must be late there for you, huh? My sister, I think you do know her very well, and she's enjoying your talks. Are those who have joined us, thank you so much for joining us. We're about to end the show, and I don't want to end it. I love talking to you, Mother Malati. As soon as I woke up, I was so excited because I always remember you, and it brings Srila Prabhupada to us. It feels like Srila Prabhupada is here with us. And so there are so many questions. Those of you who...
I end with a Prabhupada story and my daughter?
Yes, please do. Just before you end, Rasasthali Mataji, Andamalakar, Gora Mataji, all of you are asking these questions. If you'd like to know more information, please do go to gopigita.com and click on the Parents tab. You get a lot of information there on parenting and Krishna consciousness. And check out gbcsbt.com, all the videos of the Children at Home shows. There are a lot of previous sessions, no more tapes, that's like 30 years ago. One with Krishna Maharaj that will answer a lot of these questions. So please do check those out. And so, yes, Mother Malati, please do give us your story.
I was in Mayapur and I was cooking for Prabhupada, and it was a nice exchange going on. And then he goes, "Where's your all-attractive daughter?" And I replied, "She's an all-attractive Maya." And Prabhupada laughed. He goes, "Actually, she's all attractive. Everyone loves her."
Oh, I love that. Yes, she will never, we say she's not with us, or the kids have gone, or the kids have come back. Going and coming is a state of mind. It's not a state of physical location. And I don't know your daughter. I can't imagine that she's ever forgotten Srila Prabhupada. That Prabhupada's with her.
Back to Godhead magazine, I think it's this coming edition, and there's an article by Satyaraj about her in the Back to Godhead. So you can check it out.
Oh, that's great timing. Wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, whether our kids are showcasing externally their Krishna consciousness, and I know this sounds really wishy-washy. It's not wishy-washy. We want to encourage our children as much as possible and get rid of the negative talk in our heads towards our children. We want to always, they are Vaishnavas, and we want to always recognize their Vaishnava qualities by speaking it. The way Mother Malati was able to speak to the 3 dacoit girls, instead of pinpointing and focusing on, oh my God, what are they wearing and how can they wear that in the temple? She thanked them. Look at this. They're spending their free time voluntarily taking care of Srila Prabhupada's, temple and serving in the temple room. And I love that.
Specifically decorating his Vyasa-san.
Decorating his Vyasa-san. Yeah.
And for me, anybody who demonstrates service to Prabhupada,
yes,
they have my heart.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I'm glad that this is hitting home for a lot of devotees, and I'd love to talk to you again. And Rasasthali Mataji is also responding. Thank you. We're glad that this is helping you. Hit that share button. Go to gbcsbt.com. Check out the GBC video. Go to gopigita.com and check out the parenting courses that I'm offering. Sign up for one for your community. And we will see you next Sunday at 11 Central and 12 Eastern.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mother Malati.
Hare Krishna.